Did you hear that 91% of guys that use Dove Men Plus Care antiperspirant recommend it? Dove Men Plus Care user Rob said that it's like the Hoover Dam, but for his armpits. Well, if it can hold back that much sweat, Rob, it must be good. Pick up some new Dove Men Plus Care antiperspirant for yourself at your local retailer.
It's Thursday. Off we go toward the weekend. And on the menu this morning, Giancarlo goes yard again. Football tonight with an absolutely terrible game. And we need to have another discussion about safety, only this time it's not football players, it's baseball fans. Golic, all of that, and a whole lot more on the menu today.
Certainly a ton of sports to talk about, but that issue of fan safety rears its ugly head again with a young, very, very little girl who got hit in the face with a foul ball. Just, we've talked about this before, the netting, where it's put up, how it's put up, is it enough? And what a tough scene at the Yankee game. And you could see the anguish on the player's face when this all happened. That was tough to see and tough to watch. And you just hope everything's okay with the little girl.
Absolutely. We will hear from several people directly involved in that, including Rob Manfred, who is, I suppose, in this particular case, indirectly involved, but most significantly involved, because the decision is going to have to be made as to whether or not they do something that I know they don't want to do, and I understand why they don't want to do it. But the reality is, well, I'm going to make a ridiculous analogy here, but this whole idea of court storming and fans running onto a football field to tear down the goalposts and everything, I love it. I want people to be able to do it because it's fun. But somewhere along the line, someone has to point out, or someone has to tell me, how many people are getting hurt doing this? What are the chances people are going to get hurt? And when does it stop being worth it? I mean, when Northwestern beat Indiana in 1987, I remember it like it was yesterday, or January of 88. They were the defending champs from 87. I believe to this day I was the first person who made it out onto the court, and I was jumping around, and it was one of the great times of my sports life. And I wasn't afraid for my safety or anything else like that. But if people are getting hurt in these things, and especially at football, when they're tearing down goalposts and the thing is collapsing, then you just can't do it.
Can't do it.
I mean, you don't want to put netting all across the baseball field because you want to be as close to the game as you can. But if 4-year-olds are getting hit in the face, you have to really consider it.
Well, you do, and even adults there, because we're in an era where there are a lot of people looking down at their phone. And you could sit there and say, well, that's their fault. If they're sitting in those seats, they need to look up. But, tell that to a team or to Major League Baseball when something horrible happens. If you say, well, if they get serious, well, it's their own fault they were looking at their phone. It doesn't fly too far. I mean, even though we understand the concept of that, when you're in that particular situation, it just doesn't seem as kosher to say.
Yeah.
Well, that's their own fault, if they're sitting there in the hospital getting all stitched up because they were looking at their phone. You don't go to a game as a fan and the end result is you getting hurt. Now, sometimes things happen. We get that. But as far as running on the field, storming a court, it's supposed to be fun. But is it worth somebody getting hurt? No, I like it as well. I think it's cool. But as soon as you get that injury, it's like, okay, we can't do this. We're there for your entertainment if you have a good time, but for no one to get hurt, even though, as they say, it would ruin it for everybody else. Because I don't think it happens often that people get that hurt. But it takes once, right?
Yeah, that's
not supposed to happen.
We have this look, if you go back and check my timeline and in the conversations that we've had, we've talked about this forever.
Yeah.
And I've been saying forever, baseball has to do this. And the time to have the conversation is not when the 4-year-old girl gets hit in the face. It's before she gets hit in the face. Because you don't want the 4-year-old. It doesn't make it. How many people's fun equals one 4-year-old girl right now in a hospital, and the last we heard from the father was they didn't know if she was going to require surgery or not. On a 4-year-old girl going to a baseball game.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point, the math on that doesn't compute. And first and foremost, you're concerned about her. There are HIPAA laws, so we don't really know the details of her injuries, nor do we need to know. It's not our business to know. It's the family's concern, of course. And everyone involved shows all the appropriate amounts of concern. I don't believe Major League Baseball doesn't care. I don't believe that. The players obviously are devastated.
Yeah, you see them. Yeah. You're
so,
right.
So that's one of the big topics of conversation on the menu today. We got the football game. Well, why don't we do off the top? Why am I dancing around off the top? We can just do off the top. Here we go. Let's start with Chris Sale, Mike. Is he the American League Cy Young winner? Is Corey Kluber the American League Cy Young winner? Chris Sale keeps just mowing him down. He's got 300 strikeouts.
Yeah, he struck out a final batter he faced in Baltimore last night, giving him 13 strikeouts a night, 300 for the season. He reached 300 strikeouts in a season, third in the third fewest innings. Only 2 pitchers. And it seems whenever we do a pitcher list Randy Johnson is always on it.
Sure.
And so the fewest innings was Randy Johnson and then Pedro Martinez and then Chris Sale. So he also joins, Sale does, Randy Johnson, Nolan Ryan twice, and Steve Carlton as the only players who have 300 strikeouts in their first season with a new team. So, yeah, I mean, I think he is a tick ahead of Corey Kluber. Maybe I just say a tick because I'd like to see Kluber win it, but he's been an absolute monster.
Kluber's ERA is better.
Yeah.
They have the same number of wins. I'm looking at their numbers right here.
Both have 17 wins. Kluber's ERA is a little bit better.
Not a little bit.
Well, yeah, you're right. 275, 235. And strikeouts, it's a difference of 48. Sale has 48 more than Kluber. I'd give it to Kluber.
Yeah, look, you're a Cleveland guy.
Yeah,
It's going to be a very interesting vote. I'd like to see what someone like Buster thinks about who's going to win that. Meanwhile, Giancarlo Stanton does it again. His second home run, Golic, in the last 3 days.
Yep, his 56th home run of the year. So he's on pace now for 59. He has 10 games left. Do we think he can do it? Remember, he talked at 61 as being the real record in his mind, even though we know the real record is 73. He needs 4 more to join the 60 home run club, something done just 8 times in league history. He's actually ahead
and only twice legitimately.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He's actually ahead of the pace of Sammy Sosa in 2001 and Babe Ruth in 1927, who at this point in their season had 54 home runs, or Stanton has 56. A couple other guys.
Say that again. He's ahead of the pace that Babe Ruth was on in 1927.
1927.
Probably the most famous baseball season ever played.
And then a couple of guys close to 60 home runs. In 2002, A-Rod had 55 home runs with 14 games left. He ended up only hitting 2 more. Had 57 for the season. And in 2006, Ryan Howard had 56 home runs with 21 games left, but he only hit 2 more after that. So, again, Stanton has 10 games left and is sitting at 56.
I like that they now calculate the exit velocity.
Oh, yeah, isn't that great? Yeah.
He left the yard at almost 117 miles an hour. He hit the ball 117 miles an hour.
Doesn't Judge have the highest one this year, like 121, I think?
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I just like that they can calculate that.
Yeah, true.
That's really remarkable.
Off the top.
All right, the Rams and the 49ers tonight on Thursday Night Football.
You laugh at that. I like what the Rams are doing, and certainly the 49ers aren't where they want to be right now. They still have they don't have their quarterback of the future right now.
They haven't scored a touchdown this season.
You know what? You look at it one way, I look at it another. I look at where is the team going to go. Now, the biggest difference to me is the 49ers don't have their quarterback. I like what I'm seeing out of the Rams with Jared Goff coming along. Gurley ran well, the defense and what they can do. I'm actually looking forward to the game, and you have a couple of coaches who haven't been long since they could go to a bar. Their one is 31 years old. That's Sean McVay. Kyle Shanahan is 37 years old. Combined their days old, it's the third youngest head coaching matchup, but there's only one coaching matchup ahead of it because it was 2 times they played.
Don't tell me.
It was 1992.
So that's not John Gruden. I was going to guess
not John Gruden. It is part of a very famous coaching, one of the most famous coaches of all time, but it's not him.
David Shula.
And?
Who would have been another really young coach then?
Really, really young. Crazy special teamer, coach that loved to run up and down the field.
Was it Bill Cowher?
Bill Cowher.
Wow.
Bill Cowher and Dave Shula.
So he was that young? I didn't realize he was that young.
They were the youngest pair, and twice they face each other. Now this is the third youngest pair. How about this, though? In the last 22 games.
This is the stat of the day.
This is it. In the last 22 games, the 49ers are 3-0 against the Rams. And 0-19 against everybody else. They have the Rams number.
That's a remarkable statistic.
Yeah, it really is.
Look, am I intrigued by what the Rams are doing now?
Yes,
with Jared Goff and Gurley's playing better and Cooper Kupp and all the other. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, they are. They've got Donald now. The 49ers are a team they're where the Jets are.
Yeah, I mean,
at the embryonic stage of building.
Mm-hmm.
And all I'm saying is, from a national interest standpoint, they're not a real sexy matchup, right? I mean, you don't have not a real sexy matchup. I'm not suggesting I won't watch it.
Right.
I'll watch it because it's football and you watch football. But
at least the team is playing tonight that the mayor wanted in Los Angeles.
That's right. If it was the
Chargers, well, that'd be a whole other story.
Eric Garcetti would be doing something else.
Off the top.
Well played. And finally, Jake LaMotta died yesterday, and it's fascinating. Jake LaMotta was an iconic fighter long before you and I were born.
Yeah.
but not in a way that it lasted. Like when I was a kid, I knew who Sugar Ray Robinson was. Right. I knew who Joe Louis was. There were some boxers that were way before my time that I had heard of. Jake LaMotta was not one of them. And then they made the movie Raging Bull, which is one of the great sports movies of all time.
Robert De Niro, man.
De Niro's brilliant in that, and it's Scorsese and it's Joe Pesci, and it's a great movie. If you've never seen that movie, I have no idea how well it holds up. I haven't seen it in a long time. But I certainly remember loving that movie, and it made LaMotta incredibly famous to generations that would never otherwise.
Because it wasn't the International Boxing Hall of Fame says his record is 83-19-4 with 30 knockouts. That's not going to be too memorable to people, but. You know, he gave Sugar Ray Robinson his first loss in 43, and a bad part of it was the mob kept trying to get him to fix fights, and he kept not doing that. And I think it was in 1947, he did fix a fight and got suspended for that.
And he got a title shot for it.
Yeah.
I mean, the history of boxing is loaded with all this kind of stuff.
And I love the ancillary things. Like, he got into boxing because he tried to go into the military, and he was rejected because of a medical condition. So he boxed.
Huh.
I mean, you always think of the path of somebody. What if he got into the military? Where would where would it have gone? But he got rejected for a medical condition and got into boxing. And he was a guy known for just letting the other guy throw haymakers at him so he could get in close enough to then beat the guy up. And it was really incredible.
The legendary moment in that movie when Robinson just annihilates him and they stop the fight, and he's basically out on his feet, but he will not go down. He will not go down. And he walks over to the center of the ring and he says, "You never got me down, Ray. You never got me down." And you get chills remembering it if you've seen the movie. It's a brilliant movie, and again,
it's one of those things where he's not obviously anywhere near the greatest in that conversation, but certainly the name because of the movie. It's just a fun one for the younger generation again to Google. Jake LaMotta, and kind of read about it, and it's a pretty interesting history.
All right, that's
95 by the way, 95 years old.
The beating that he took in the ring on a regular basis, and he lives to be 95 is remarkable. And by the way, Jeremy Schaap, who did a magnificent obit that we just watched on SportsCenter, and that we're going to cut down and play for you on TV later this morning, is really, really interesting stuff. It points out that he had a longtime fiance. Yeah, he was 95. I guess they weren't rushing into anything.
Well, they had time.
95 years old, a longtime fiance. Anyway, R.I.P. Jake LaMotta. It was, and because of the movie, he developed a whole other level of fame.
Dude went into
coming back again in the 80s.
Retired in 54, went into acting and stand-up comedy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's
remember
just
at the
awesome.
end of that's how the movie begins and ends with De Niro, who gained like 50 or 60 pounds to play the part, and him smashing his head into the wall in the prison. It's a tremendous movie. But you don't want to remember the man today because they made a movie about his life. He was a great fighter in his day and legendarily fought Ray Robinson, who, if you were to ask someone like Max Kellerman or Brian Kenny or someone who knows much more about boxing than the two of us put together, I think the immediate answer to the question, who's the greatest boxer that ever lived, the answer is Ray Robinson. I believe that's the answer.
And LaMotta gave him his
LaMotta fought him 6 times.
Yeah, gave him his first loss in 43. Yeah.
All right, that's what everyone's talking about. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. So a 4-year-old girl gets hit in the face with a screaming foul ball at Yankee Stadium yesterday. And I've told this story before. I've only one time in my life sat in seats like that at a baseball game. When I was a kid growing up, we went to the Yankee games all the time with my dad, and we sat all the way upstairs. And then these days, when I go to games with my kids, we don't sit down nearby the field or anything like that. But one time in Chicago, where at least at this point they had no netting of any kind, we were sitting up the third base line. The Cubs gave us tickets. States was all excited to be back and take the kids to Wrigley Field. And we were sitting quite near the field up the first base line. And there was a line drive that was hit like near us, not close enough that it was going to hit us. But at that point, I realized, holy smoke, we are directly in harm's way. And my kids were little at that point, so I was vigilant. I mean, I moved so that I was sitting on this side of them, the home plate side of them. And I was as focused on that game as I've ever been on a game in my life. You don't realize just how much these balls are screaming at you and how close you are to it until you're
we see it all the time.
There.
We see them hit into the stands all the time, and the liners, and people put a hand up or something to block it, and they'll deflect it. I'm sure it stings the hand and all that. But, that's a moving baseball that unfortunately finds a bad mark every now and then, and that's exactly what happened yesterday. The face of a 4-year-old girl. I mean, the players, you just see it on their faces, the devastation there, and it brings back, again, this unfortunately is a type of thing that is sometimes the final straw to bring change, because this has been talked about before, the netting going, further down the first and third base line. It's been talked about, but nothing's been done about it. So you wonder if it's going to take that moment, and was this that moment yesterday that says, okay, you know what, that's enough. We have to do something.
Now, this has been talked about a lot. Owners have expressed concerns that additional netting would detract from the experience of their ticket holders in certain premium seats.
Those are expensive seats.
I get that.
Those are expensive seats. I get that as well. And now you're putting the net, and you can obviously see through the net, and that's right behind the plate. But I get what they're saying. All of a sudden you have just a little bit of a barrier in an area where normally you're right there, seeing everything. Now, do I think, and I don't go to a lot of games, so I'm not the one to ask this. It's those there. Would it detract from your experience?
Here's the thing that you've got two separate concerns. You've got the visual impediment that it creates, to whatever degree that is significant. And then there's, for lack of a better word, the psychological impediment that it creates. Like when you're sitting down by the field, you feel like you're right there.
You do? Yeah.
You and I have been on the field.
Yes.
I'd be able to throw out a first pitch and all that kind of stuff. You realize how close you
right
are
there.
to the fans. They're right there.
Yeah.
If there's a net in between you, even if you're still that close, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
And they don't want to take that away.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of interaction at times between players in the batter's box and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
They don't want that stuff to be lost. And I get it. I understand that. But you can't have 4-year-old girls getting hit in the face with balls either.
Yeah.
You just can't have that.
Yeah.
Here's Todd Frazier, who was on the field and visibly shaken.
It was terrible, shaking up a little bit, and I don't know really what happened. I hope she's all right, but it was just something that I wish never happened. It was tough. It was tough to watch and tough to be a part of, to be honest.
Todd, when you hit a ball like that, do you follow it with your eyes into the stands?
Of course. I mean, even at third base, I watch every foul ball that's hit pretty hard, and you don't see many of them hit anybody, and just very unlucky, man. It was tough.
What went through your mind when you saw something like that?
I thought of my kids. I have 2 kids under 3 years old, and just hope she's all right.
I mean, that is stuff. These guys know how fast and hard the baseball is hit, and as he said, even when he's at third base, he watches them. You watch and you see what happens, and you kind of hope. It's kind of twofold. You're looking, is somebody going to catch it? How are they going to catch it? Who's going to get it? And then, is it going to hit somebody? Because we've seen a bat go into the stands at times as well, and you're like, oh, God, And then when you see it hit somebody, or if you don't, and then you see someone hurt, and then it trickles back down to you. It's a 4-year-old girl. Oh, and she, by the way, got hit in the face with the baseball. You're like, oh, my God, you got to be kidding me. I mean, it's just devastating to the player.
Frazier hit that ball 105 miles an hour. The exit velocity that we were just joking around about gleefully in Giancarlo Stanton's home run was 116 miles an hour. That ball, which hit a little kid in the face, was hit 105 miles an hour. That's 105 miles an hour, like something that basically is as hard as a rock. Being hit directly at you.
Yeah.
And, you're going to blame a 4-year-old if she's not paying such rapt attention to everything that's going on that she might get hit in the face. I mean, this is what's going on. So the answer to this cannot be, well, don't have kids sit down there.
Right.
That's not a good answer.
No, it's not.
That's not the answer that baseball wants. It's not the answer anybody wants. If you're lucky enough to be able to bring a little kid down that close to a seat at a baseball game, you have A, it's going to be a great experience, and B, you have a really good chance of developing a baseball fan for the rest of his or her life. So is the answer, Mike, more? I mean, the only answer to this would be more netting if you're going to do more netting. That's the obvious answer.
Run it down the
question.
first and third base line. That's the.
Would you do it? If you're sitting where Rob Manfred is sitting, would you mandate it? And obviously, he can't do it. Let's bear in mind all these conversations we're having about Roger lately.
That's the owners,
with
the parks.
the NFL.
Yeah,
Rob Manfred can only suggest it.
Right.
He can't go. He can't call up the Steinbrenners or any other.
No,
owners.
because remember, the commissioner is hired by the owners.
Right. I wanted to play you him though. Here's Rob Manfred because he has talked about this many times before. Here's the commissioner of Major League Baseball.
It remains an ongoing discussion in the industry. We gave some guidelines 2 years ago, and what we have done since then is that we have encouraged the individual clubs to engage in a localized process, look at their own stadiums. Every stadium's different, and to try to make a good decision about how far the netting should go in order to promote fan safety. If you look at what's happened, there has been a continuous forward movement in terms of increased netting in stadiums around the leagues, and I expect that process will continue this offseason.
So I would imagine you have to try it, right? I would imagine you have to get to the point where you have to at least do it. Do you do it on a temporary basis? Do you try it, see what it's like, see if it, the results from it? Do you leave it up? I don't know, but I think a situation like this makes you think long and hard about, okay, this is, it's been real. We have seen people get hit before, but there is always that one moment, there's that one moment of, aha, okay, we've gotten by, has this one gone too far? And I think for some people, this is going to be that moment. Is this that moment where it went far enough where owners and or parks are going to make the decision, okay, we need to extend this. It's just we can't afford anything like this happening. Hey, everyone, Mike Golic here. Support for the Mike and Mike podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/Mikes. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS, consumeraccess.org number 3030.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
Joining us now in studio is the one and the only Herm Edwards. Good morning, Herman.
Good morning. It's nice, these comfy chairs.
Like this, huh?
Yeah,
it's
pretty nice. Yeah. You guys should do shows here more often than these chairs right here.
Every now and again we do. This is the GNC Lounge.
Now, are they orange or red, Greeny?
To me, they're red.
To me, they're orange. What are they to you?
They're orange. They remind me when I was in Tampa, and we had old Buccaneer Bruce, and we had to walk him off the gangplank. We got rid of those popsicle uniforms we had. I mean, it's just we actually walked him off the gangplank. And the fans were there. We were changing uniforms. It was a big like, oh my, how many people showed up? It was unbelievable. We walked this guy off the plank, and he just, in the uniform just went right over to get him out of here.
Herman Edwards is here. He's got a million great stories. And before we get into all of the football, I did want to get your perspective because, among other things, you are the dad right now of a couple of little ones.
Yes.
The kids are little. They're not as little as 4, but they're young. And you see what happened to the ball game yesterday. And this is not going to be a rant about how baseball doesn't care about the state. I don't think that for 1 second. I think they are weighing two issues here. They're weighing, do we put the nets up all the way out to the foul pole or somewhere out, beyond the dugouts right now, and how much that impedes the experience for others, and how many people are getting hit with balls. But there's something about seeing a 4-year-old getting hit in the face and taken to the hospital, and we can only hope that she will be fine. But there's something about that feels as though it is going to create more conversation. Forgetting anything else, as a dad, what are your thoughts about that?
It was horrifying to watch. It really was. I watched it this morning when you guys were on, and it was like, are you kidding me? And I've been to some ball games, and it's no fault to the players. It's just, when that thing comes off the bat, if you're not paying attention, all of a sudden you're hit. And when a child gets hit like that, boy, it's just, look at the players. I mean, they're all like, everyone gets it. And I don't know why they don't, and I've said this for years, like in hockey, how the glass that just kind of goes across, that just, why don't they just
because they want you to have this experience.
You can still see through it, though.
Yeah, but they like the
they want a touchy-feely. I get it. I get it.
A lot of people were tweeting that in about that, but I would go with the netting, and here's my thought. I would say put the netting up we always talk about when they tweak rules in sports. What do we always say? Well, the players will get used to it. The players will adapt. Well, you know what? The fans will as well. You put the netting up, they'll adapt. They'll learn. Very soon, you won't even realize it's there, and you'll be looking through it because you have game after game, and you'll just become used to it.
But is the glass easier to see through than the net? No.
Oh yeah,
No.
but I think it's you feel more.
You feel more because you can feel the.
blocked
Okay,
off.
I got it.
You can interact. One of the things that you see at ball games all the time, of course, is guys are flipping a ball out to fans, and so you lose that.
Well, no, I mean, it depends on how high you put the net. You still throw it over the top of the net.
Yeah, I mean, they're usually,
you can.
they're just sort of
No,
flipping
I
it to
get
the
it, but I
person
mean,
sitting
you
there.
don't really take that completely out of it. You can still get it out there.
Andrea tells me there are a lot of "it's the parents' fault" tweets this morning. I'm not even reading those.
Why is that?
Balls hit 100. Well, I mean, what are you supposed to do? Throw yourself up as a human shield. The balls hit 105 miles an hour.
Gets there
It's not that
like
easy
that,
to react that quickly.
You make a great example, and you make a great point. I can remember going to an arena game in Kansas City, and I took my daughters, and this is when they were younger. They were like 5 and 6, and I'm talking to somebody, visiting with some folks, and the arena ball, they're throwing the ball all over the ball yard, right? And one comes actually at one of my little girls, and I see it out of the corner of my eye because I'm kind of peripheral talking to folks, but I'm watching the ball because I figured something could come, and sure enough, one comes sailing right at her head, and I kind of knocked it down. But are parents responsible? I don't know if they're responsible, but it happens so fast sometimes. Yeah. You just can't see it. It's like, oh, what just happened?
Yeah, I'm not putting that on.
No,
105 miles an hour coming at you, and you're supposed to have the reaction time of a ball player. I mean, it's not going to happen.
All right, that's a conversation that will continue. Let's get to some football with Herman. Here in the GNC Lounge, mix it up with the GNC Buy Two, Get One Free Mix and Match sale. The best thermogenics, vitamins, fish oil, and more from Performix are all Buy Two, Get One Free. The sale ends September 27th, only at GNC. The last game that we saw was the Giants and the Lions. We have Niners-Rams tonight. But the last NFL game was Giants and Lions, and it certainly was an eye-opener. That's 2 weeks, and it's longer than that we've seen this Giant offensive line just look a mess. Some of the schematics just don't seem to be. Whatever they're doing, it clearly isn't working. And I heard Ben McAdoo talking about possibly giving up the play calling, doing something quote-unquote drastic, up to including getting rid of the play calling responsibilities, delegating those to somebody else. You were a head coach. You were a defensive guy. Did you? I'm just trying to remember. Did you call the defensive sets and things like that on the sideline?
I had coordinators, and like you always have conversations with them, obviously, during the course of the game. You're involved in the game plan on both sides of the ball as well as special teams. But I always felt like I wanted to have a pulse of the team. I wanted to feel like I could go anywhere and didn't have to worry about a certain group. I wanted to coach the whole team along with the coaches. So I felt very comfortable with my coordinators. I do know this. Whether he calls the plays or not, it's not so much about the plays. It's really not. It's really about the first thing and the most important thing is how do we protect our quarterback? If you can't do that, it doesn't matter what plays you call.
How do they do it?
Well, in my opinion, they run a lot of 11 personnel, and we know that's one back, one tight end, and that's fine. But here again, when we go back to throw the football, what are we doing to protect the quarterback? Because if he can't function, we can't function. And he's the type of guy, he's not going to change. You're not going to move him out of the pocket and change the platform for where he throws. He wants to throw in the pocket. Okay, with that being said, what do? Do we eliminate 5 out all the time? Do we bring more protectors in? And who cares if they know? We got a pretty good quarterback if we keep him upright and if he's confident throwing the football, because that's what we do. We don't run the ball. I mean, that's secondary for this offense. They're not even trying to run the ball, okay? So let's run it, because it's easy to say, let's go run it. Why? You don't want to run it. Okay. You want to throw it around the yard? Okay, let's throw it around the yard, but let's protect the quarterback with formations.
Mike, how?
Exactly.
How are we doing?
Again, I talked about Ingram, who is not a big blocking tight end. He's 240, but that doesn't mean he can't run his routes attached at times.
Explain what that means.
Attached means if he's lined up right next to Eric Flowers, the left tackle, he's still going to go off for a pass. I'm not asking him to roadblock anybody. It's still in a passing down. But what that does, look at what Ziggy Ansah did. Ziggy Ansah just, when there's no tight end there, he just lines up wide, and it's a straight speed rush. Well, if you have a tight end there who's going off for a pass, nobody jams a tight end on a line anymore, so he's still going to get a release. And I'm not saying do it every play, but now Ziggy, either is he going to go all the way outside of the tight end, to which now he has to take, he's farther away from the quarterback, or If he goes through the tight ends, the tight end goes off for a pass, it's still more in a controlled area and not giving him the freedom. You have a backs can still go out on their routes, but you know what they can do is they can throw a shoulder into the rib of a D end who's rushing up the field. Just slow him down enough. And to me, it seems like, Herm, they're banging their head against the wall saying, this is what we run. Yep. This is our system. It's your job to block that guy. Well, my thought was that it's the coach's job to put your players in the best chance to succeed. And the best chance to succeed is your quarterback being upright. And that has to be priority number one.
I've always said this, a plan that can't be changed is a bad plan.
Yeah.
And if you got a plan, that's fine, and I just think at the end, your problems can never be bigger than your purpose. Okay? That's how it works in life. We all got problems. We got problems right now, okay, on offense, okay. Well, what is the purpose? The purpose is, first of all, protect the guy that plays with the ball. He's a quarterback, okay? That is our purpose. Well, how do we do that? Okay, well, here's our problems. The problems is we can't protect. Well, what do we do to help protection? You just mentioned one with the tight end, whether it's a back. There's a lot of different ways you can do this. They have enough personnel players where they can actually protect this guy.
So real quickly, because I want to finish on other football to talk about in a bit, the offensive line. I heard some former old linemen who I really respect, who are in this business now, talking about it, saying a lot of it starts with how you rate offensive linemen. So I'm going to go back to when you did it, and I've always thought a old lineman running a 40 was ridiculous. But I don't care what he runs a 40 in, and that's what these guys are saying. Quit worrying about their 40, how high they jump, how far they jump, and all that, and look at their feet, look at their hands, look at their technique. Maybe take a guy that's not as good as an athlete. You don't go, wow, what an athlete, but you know what he does? He steps the right way. His head's in the right spot. His hands are in the right spot. May not be a great athlete, but fundamentally he's more sound than this guy who looks like a great athlete.
Yeah, you make a great point, and I always like tough guys. I like tough guys. I like guys that just tough. I just think that those are the guys at the end you want, especially inside, okay? Your guards and your center, they got to be tough guys, okay? The left tackle, in my opinion, in today's world, he's a corner. He's a corner because he's playing against the best pass rusher out there. He's in space all the time. The left tackle's in space all the time. He's a bump and run corner. If you can imagine a bump and run corner playing a great wide receiver, they use the same technique. I can remember being a coach in Kansas City, and I would go in the offensive line room, okay? I was a scout. And I'd go in the offensive line room, and I basically would watch the left tackle against Derek Thomas, who was our defensive end, and Neil Smith. And I'm going, and Howard Mudd was the coach. I said, Howard, I said, this left tackle is like a corner playing bump and run. He says, Herm, you're exactly right. The footwork and everything. If you're playing bump and run, you're square. You got a guy coming off the edge. It's no different than covering a wide receiver playing bump and run. He's got to have great hands and great feet, okay? The other guys, to me, they're tough guys.
Right.
Just get you some tough guys. Get you some guys that grab and hold and kick you. Get you some guys that want to fight inside, and you'll be okay. And the left tackle is the guy he's the best athlete generally of the offensive lineman.
Mike and Mike, Herm Edwards is in our studio. Go around the National Football League with some action. An interesting division. We talked about the Giants, so let's talk a little bit about the NFC East, where the Philadelphia, where both of you guys played the majority, Herman, your entire career.
Yep.
And the Eagles with an interesting start to their year, and Wentz and what they're looking like as you assess the Eagles through 2 weeks in a division where Dallas looks like they have some warts, and the Giants candidly look terrible, and Washington's a little up and down. I like the Eagles.
I like the Eagles. I'm a little bit worried. They're a little bit pass happy right now. When you break them down, they're averaging about 40 passes a game and only 16 runs. That's a little bit bothersome.
Tough to get done.
You know, you just can't get all of a sudden going one way too far. And I get it. You know, it's easy. You know, it's funny in football. I was a head coach. You know, those offensive coordinators, boy, they sit there and they run the ball and they make 2 yards, and it's like, and then they run it again and make maybe 3 yards, and then they sit there and go, you know, I could throw a pass out there and make 5 yards every time. And before you know it, they start chucking it. And they keep chucking it because they don't like what it takes to run. You got to have a mentality to run. It's not always pretty.
Too.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not pretty, see? And so you start throwing it, and then when you look at the game, you go, boy, I only ran the ball 16 times, huh? Yeah, you threw it 40, coach. And before you know it, at the end of the season, you're going to have 670-odd passes, and you're going to be way out of balance. And that's never good.
We saw Detroit run in this game. We know they can pass. The defense playing a little better. With injuries in Green Bay, the quarterback, I'm not sure in Minnesota. Chicago still seems to be a ways. Could Detroit be the team in the North there?
Who would ever think it? I still think Green Bay is, Aaron Rodgers, goes down and plays in Atlanta, and both his left tackles are dressed like us.
Yeah.
They're standing there watching the guy. They're up there looking at the screen, looking at themselves. Hey, we're on television. No, you should be out there. Your poor quarterback's running around. He got no
then
shot,
you lose
right?
Your receiver,
You're
your
right.
interior
line. And so I still think Green Bay, when they get healthy, their defense is playing a little bit better, which is good. And I think when they get healthy, they're still the team to beat.
Herman, give me some Straight Talk. Brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. I was on the afternoon show with our friends in Chicago on ESPN 1000 the other day, and the fans are screaming for the rookie quarterback. They're seeing Deshaun Kaiser playing in Cleveland and Deshaun Watson playing in Houston, and we traded up to get this Mitchell Trubisky, and the quarterback that we have here, Mike Glennon, is not setting the world on fire, and he's not our future. I want to see the kid. What do you think?
Well, I think he's got about 2 more games, maybe. And then you got to pull the hook. Because here's the problem you have. You got a veteran guy who hasn't played in a while. And I said this. He's going to get off to a slow start probably because he hasn't played a lot. But here's the problem when you look at it from the coaching standpoint. You go, I got a veteran guy in here now. He's turning the ball over. Okay? I mean, he's giving it to the other guy. He's turning the ball over. Now, I get a rookie to do that. I mean, hey, that's what I'm calling the guy. And I said, look, the rookie can turn the ball over.
He also had drop passes that could have beat Atlanta in week 1.
I get that, but I'm just saying he's turning the ball over now. I said, you can't turn it over. I said, because I bring the rookie in, he can turn it over. And by week 8, he's going to be a better player. Okay? That's what I'm betting on. Mm-hmm. And so that's what he's facing. He's facing that and the fact that if they keep losing and they're not scoring points, guess what? I bring the rookie in. The rookie can do this, right? And we're going to get better. He's going to be a better quarterback in week 8 because the fact that now he's got experience. And next year he's going to be even a better quarterback. So that's what, Glennon is facing right now. And he knows it. He knows it. He feels it. Trust me. He knows that, you know what? He hears it.
Oh, yeah.
You can say he doesn't hear it. He hears it.
Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks.
So you have tonight 49ers and Rams, and everybody's going to joke, what a bad game it is. I'm actually looking forward to it. I like what the Rams are doing and where they're going. If you're a 49ers fan, what are you looking for? You don't have your quarterback of the future yet. You have a young coach. You have a young GM.
Next year's draft.
So when you're watching this team tonight
Kirk
and
Cousins.
you're watching your team through the year, what are you looking for?
Be competitive. Just be competitive. And I think they've done that. Their defense is kind of, look, now, they didn't have a nice start. I mean, they played Carolina, team that went to the Super Bowl, and they turn around and go to Seattle. I mean, come on. I mean, they're rebuilding, and they got to play those 2 defenses right out the gate. Well, guess what? You're not probably going to score a lot of points, right? So I think they're competitive. I went to one of their practices. I think they're all in. They got a young nucleus on defense that they're trying to build. When Foster, he's hurt right now. He comes back, he's going to be a good player.
Solomon Thomas as well.
So they got some good players. Offensively, Coach Shanahan, he has the system. And I said this in the beginning. When he went there, he has this nice playbook, and the Atlanta emblems on the playbook. He just changes it a little bit, and he puts the 49ers. But when they break the huddle, Julio Jones, Sanu, and Freeman and Coleman, they don't break the huddle with that offense. And it's just so that's what you're dealing with right now.
Looks a little different.
Just a little bit.
I don't mean to make jokes, but they're one of those teams that is not. They're not going to win this year, and they're not developing a quarterback. So they're really kind of accomplishing almost nothing. It's a situation I know very well. I got to run.
Thanks, Herm.
Herman's got to go to Sports Center. Thank you, Herman. Back in a flash. Mike and Mike.
First time skydiving?
Sure is.
Okay, you just open the door like this and you jump. Wait.
Should we be like in tandem?
Tandem? That's a great idea.
Are you a certified instructor?
No, but I love parachutes and I love people. Here we go.
You wouldn't take chances with an uncertified skydiving instructor. Don't do it with your finances. Find a certified financial planner professional today at letsmakeaplan.org. CFP. Work with the highest standard.